Hi Ross, great to see you today.
Good to see you.
Fantastic location, flat light, no harsh shadows or anything like that. We're going to be testing out these new macro lenses. You have the new macro 105 f2.8S on your Z7 II.
That's right.
I've got a Z7 II here. I have the 50mm f2.8. Looking forward to seeing how sharp these are going to be and just putting them through their paces. You've chosen a fantastic location here today. Talk me through what we're going to do.
Okay, well, I know it's not the brightest morning, but actually these conditions are quite good for insects because they're going to be quite inactive. It's quite cool at the minute, and dragonflies and damselflies, which we're going to find along here, tend to not fly until it's much warmer. So hopefully, if we can find subjects, they should be relatively willing to pose for us, fingers crossed. This kind of vegetation is great. We're going to look amongst these tall grasses. And because it's quite early at the minute, so hopefully once we find subjects, we can get right in there and take some shots. So, if we have a little wander along here and just have a look, so the first things first, it's a matter of kind of identifying things that we might be able to photograph. Now, it rained a little bit last night, so things tend to then disappear into the vegetation slightly, so that might make our life a little bit harder. But this is a great place for a species called banded damosels, and they love this kind of running water. This is kind of perfect for them. We can see actually there's a couple here. Yeah, there's one here. This is a male. It's got the black band on the wing, and there's just a common damselfly just here as well, actually.
It's fantastic. I love the colours on it.
Beautiful, isn't it? And the lovely thing is, on a morning like today, where we've had a bit of rain, it's quite misty and there's a lot of moisture. All those tiny droplets of water.
I'm already thinking bokeh, because there's an amazing bokeh off the back of this.
Right, yeah.
Water droplets in the background. Yeah. Is that the sort of thing we're looking at?
Yeah, definitely. Kind of getting all that detail. And it is amazing. Once you start looking through a macro lens at these subjects, the detail is they're stunning. They're stunning little things. And that's where a macro lens is fantastic, because it just, you enter a whole different world. Yeah. It really is an incredible thing to do. Like I say, at this stage, in this temperature, nothing's going to fly away. So we don't need to panic at this stage. It's just worth us identifying subjects. And one of the important things with macro isn't just the kind of technique that you need. It's knowing your subject, it's knowing the location, the habitat. And if you can build those things up over a period of time, visit the same places again and again, work with the same subjects again and again, that's really important. So one of the key things I'm looking for, Neil, when I'm shooting insects is subjects which are roosting in a position where I can get a fairly clean backdrop. And so the issue here is obviously it's busy, there's lots going on. And to get a really nice close-up, you want to be able to isolate it from its background. And so subject selection is really important. So rather than finding kind of an insect right down in the undergrowth, ideally I want to find something which is kind of higher up, something where I can shoot it without having to kind of move too many grasses, cause as little disturbance as I can. And you see this, Neil, there's a dragonfly here which actually is in quite a good position. That. So certainly compared to some of the other subjects we found so far, which have been down amongst the vegetation, this one's roosting up a little bit higher. And again, because all the droplets, it looks really nice, doesn't it?
Just the detail in the wing you can see here, and the membranes and the way that's put together, that is just incredible.
It's beautiful, isn't it? The detail in the wings, they are stunning little insects. We should be able to photograph this one relatively easily, certainly with the 105, from this kind of range. We're going to get some lovely close-ups.
So what other kit would you be using here? So we're going to be tripod based?
Yeah, there's absolutely no reason at this time of day not to use a tripod. And one of the advantages of coming out early and late when insects are cooler, naturally cooler and less active, is you can use a tripod and you've got that stability, so you can have your camera fixed and then you can obviously fine-tune composition and focus, which is essential when you're working with such a shallow depth of field.
Would you use single point focus, or what type of AFS, AFC?
Potentially, in this light, with a tripod set up, I'd probably even manually focus. Okay, so during the day when subjects are flighting, there's a bit more light, I would definitely use AF. I tend to prefer back button focusing for that. At this time of day, in lower light, I'd probably have my camera set up so that I can just press the OK button. It goes into 50% magnification, and then I can fine tune it manually, and that will give me a little bit more precision over the focusing. In terms of other accessories here, because it's so dull and flat, I'd consider using an LED light just to lighten things up very slightly. Once I'm set up, I'll probably then move it around the subject and decide which effect works best. And quite often, when you've got an opportunity like this, you'd try it from every angle and give yourself the option later to decide which one is going to work the best.
You mentioned manual focus, that's what these huge focusing rings, they make the throw and the turn on it gives you very, very precise focusing. That's what I like about, especially on that 105, super control.
Lots to.
And the other thing on the Z7 II, we have focus peaking, which as a manual focus assist is just brilliant because we can then get focus confirmation using the focus peaking setting. I'd probably set that on 2, maybe 3 to give me real sort of control over where I'm doing my manual focusing. I think that's a really, really good way to go.
I agree. Focus peaking is a real asset for macro photography. It really is.
Remote releases or exposure delay mode in camera?
Normally I'd use some kind of cable release. I prefer that. You know, a 2-second time delay, it can work, but if there's any movement at all, which there typically is, you've really got to kind of have one hand on the focusing ring, the other on the shutter release, and doing those things simultaneously. Any delay can be a problem.
Well, things like the WR11 remote release, I think using some of the, and SnapBridge even as a Wi-Fi release, they're all viable options as well, I think.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. As long as you've kind of, you're not having to physically press the shutter, I think that's all that matters. So I think what we should do now is go and grab our tripods, come back here, start setting up, and hopefully start getting some shots.
No, this looks, I can't wait to photograph this guy.
Well, let's do it.
That's excellent.
Brilliant. So although it's quite dark because of the kind of drizzle and cloud today, actually it's in some respects doing us a favour, because you can see this dragonfly, all the tiny droplets just on its kind of legs, its wings. The detail's beautiful.
Well, I can see it even from here now, just on the wings, we've got that translucent, just and the water, just like the bokeh on this is going to be just special, isn't it?
Yeah, it should be really nice shots. So, I mean, probably what I'll do now is take some handheld shots, kind of get an idea of my composition. We're going to have to be quite careful of obviously disturbing surrounding vegetation. We don't want to obviously knock the insect. Obviously, the welfare of the subject always comes first. So we've got to be very, very careful. And what I would say is around any insect, kind of keep your motions relatively smooth. They don't like sudden movement. So when you're taking pictures in a minute, just kind of go in nice and slowly, nice and kind of deliberate movements rather than sudden ones.
That all sounds completely sensible, makes complete sense there. This drizzle that we've got here, again, using the cameras like this in this sort of weather, they're weather sealed. This macro lens here, the 105, has the fluorine coating on the front element there, so any water, even if we weren't using the lens hood here, so any water droplets, it will just come off of the fluorine coating. We've got great dust sealing here and weather sealing properties. I use my other S-line lenses a lot in some really incredible conditions, and they just perform so well. So even though it's drizzling, we're getting wet. I'm not concerned about the camera, or the camera or the lens at all. Yeah,
absolutely. And I mean, the lens hood here is going to make sure that we get no rain on the front of the element. So we should be good to go, really.
So camera settings, let's talk through you. Just take a few test shots you were talking about there, handheld. So let's talk through sort of your settings for ISO, aperture, how important is controlling the depth of field?
Depth of field is the kind of most important decision for insect photography and any close-up photography. So I tend to shoot in aperture priority, make sure that I've got kind of complete creative control over that. The advantage we have here is because the subject has got a fairly clean background, we can shoot with a slightly larger depth of field and still keep it out of focus. If the background was kind of closer and messy, we'd probably have to go with a very shallow depth of field. But that obviously gives you no leeway for error in focusing. So it's quite nice to have this situation where we can, I would imagine shooting this at perhaps f8, in order to generate enough depth of field to record our subject sharply, but still kind of throw that background out of focus to isolate our subject.
So we've got a minimum focus distance of 0.29 metres on this, which again, is probably really going to help once we can get that set up on the tripod there as well.
Absolutely, yeah, no, definitely. So, I mean, in terms of other settings for insects, I would often increase ISO. I mean, obviously, once we use a tripod, that will become less essential because the subject's not moving, because it's thankfully really still today. But certainly if I was just shooting this handheld, as I am at the minute, I'm just pumping the ISO up to 1600, 3200 to allow me to get some sharp handheld images. And I mean, as you know, the performance of these cameras with a high ISO are fantastic.
So what sort of shutter? We're talking handheld here. You've got in-body stabilisation switched on. This is a VR-enabled lens.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, that the technology now is so good, and that's one of the reasons why, you know, the Z7 II is obviously with the in-body stabilisation is great for kind of handheld insect work. Certainly it's going to be helpful here. Shooting at higher magnifications, you may not be able to get away with quite the same low shutter speeds as with other scenes. And certainly here, you know, I'd want to keep my shutter speed above 200th of a second, ideally. That would be my aim. Once we get on a tripod, I'd go a little bit lower, that's not a problem. So let's get going, shall we? So I'm kind of, at the minute, just using the back button focusing, just a single point and just kind of trying to overlay that just over the insect. And it's really important with macro photography, because your depth of field is so shallow, to try and keep the plane of focus parallel to the subject. So if I kind of come in from this angle and focus on the eye, then the body's going to just drift massively out of focus. Equally, if you come too low, the same thing's going to happen. And that's fine if you're doing that for some kind of creative effect. But if we want the eye and tail to be in focus, we kind of need to keep the camera pretty parallel to the subject in order to place as much of it as possible within the focal plane. So I've got a few handheld shots. I think now it's time to probably get the tripod set up and you know, get a few other images.
Let's get this set up then.
Okay. For most of my work, speed isn't really important. It is about resolution, it's about detail, it's about that high ISO performance. And the Z7 II is just a fantastic camera for all of those things.
And I'm finding the S-line lenses are so sharp, as we can see there. This lens looks to be incredible on the sharpness.
I mean, you look at that and it's just beautiful, isn't it? It's superb sharpness. Yeah, the lenses, the ones I've used so far have all been fantastic, and it was one of the kind of big motivations for me of changing as well was just tapping into that kind of new system of lenses.
Bayonet mount, going to the 55mm bayonet mount,
yeah,
you're not bending the light as much at the edges, and the edge sharpness is where I think you've got, and that is incredible across the frame from a sharpness perspective, but again, especially at the edges there.
Oh, it's a beautiful thing, isn't it? Absolutely lovely. And the thing, what I love about, you know, the cameras is just the ability to kind of really scrutinise sharpness before you kind of move off and kind of onto a different subject. You know, you kind of zoom in, you can see all the detail, and you know that you've got that shot. There's no risk of kind of downloading it onto the computer later and going, no, it's not sharp enough, it's not good enough. You know in camera that you've got all the detail.
On the wing there, the detail, look at that.
Beautiful, isn't it? And look at those droplets all down the tail, absolutely stunning. That's good. I mean, what we'll probably do in a minute, perhaps we'll have a little play with an LED light and just try and make up for the overcast conditions.
Fantastic. Then we're going to get the 50 and we'll have a look at that.
Okay, brilliant. So you can see here, I'm just going to put a little bit of light, and that will just make those little droplets sparkle slightly. And can you see what a difference? If I move that out, can you see how much difference it makes? But often it's just a matter of kind of positioning it. What you don't want to do is place it so close that you overwhelm the subject. The light becomes artificial, because one of the reasons why I don't use flash very often is because I want my images to look as natural as possible. And I mean, if we swap positions now, and you know, I come round past you, and if you kind of get yourself framed up again, what I'll do is I'll hold this up. I'm going to just get down low here. And I mean, to some extent, you know, you can kind of direct me and you can say what effect looks good, but the backlighting on those wings will just pick up some of the droplets.
I'm loving the backlight
nice?
Across it's sort of back and slightly to the side there. It's almost like we've got, we were just talking about not having a sunrise. I now have.
You now have your
sunrise.
Yeah, you have your.
And I've got a portable sunrise, and it can come in at any angle.
And the great thing is,
just incredible.
When you've got two people here, you know, you can be behind the camera looking, you can be saying, right, Ross, can you move it here, there, you know, can there be less light, more light? And you can direct and you can change your picture really quickly. And you can make you can make a fairly ordinary shot into a really
Well, it just
beautiful.
stands out there. You can see you've got
Look at the way the wings.
the
stand out.
separation
Yeah,
now,
absolutely.
and that helps build with. We're shooting f8 here,
Yeah.
but even so, there with the separation of your background, putting the light in there,
Yeah.
I've now separated the subject even further.
That's right.
And we've got that great depth of field there in that shot.
It's great, isn't it, in terms of a creative
Yes.
accessory for close-ups. It's brilliant, and I would kind of never go out and shoot these creatures without one in my camera bag. It's just finding that balance where you're not overwhelming the natural light too much, so it becomes, it becomes obviously artificial. It's just giving you a little bit of well, in this instance, with all these lovely droplets, is making it sparkle, isn't it?
When I was just punched into the image there, when I'm using the magnification, the way the water droplet caught the light on the wings there, and you mentioned earlier the translucency of the wings, it just brings it to life.
It does. It's always nice if you've got the opportunity like this to get a bit of variety.
Look at how the colours come out there.
I'm actually kind of feeling quite happy shooting kind of handheld here as well. That it's a little bit brighter than when we first got here. Shutter speeds are a little bit better, and tripods are great, but obviously they do kind of limit that movement. And as long as your shutter speed is fast enough to get sharp images.
Yeah, I'm shooting here. I'm 200th of a second f8. I'm on auto ISO, and it's hovering around 2,500 ISO, which I know Z7 II is easily handleable.
Yeah. No, excellent. Excellent. Well, I think probably we can say thank you very much. This little
we'll leave him alone.
Dragonfly, leave him alone, and let him get on with the rest of the day.
See what else we can find.
Let's do that. Brilliant.
Excellent.
When you start looking through a macro lens, you can lose so much time, I find.
Yes.
You kind of come out, and before you know it, a couple of hours have passed, and you've taken all these images, and you often can't plan to a great degree. A lot of macro photography is opportunism. You kind of come out, you happen to see things, and it's kind of grabbing those opportunities then. And that's beautiful. I mean, look at, it's not just the droplets on the body, but every barb on the legs.
Yeah.
It's exquisite, absolutely exquisite. What a beautiful shot.
No, I'm really liking this lens. And so, thoughts on that? You've got the OLED display on the top there.
Yeah, which is really neat, really nice, and had a little play with that earlier on, and the ability to kind of change aperture on the lens is really nice. I think once I get used to that, that's something I'll use quite a lot, especially with handheld photography, just being able to quickly alter the aperture, taking pictures and being able to quickly change depth of field whilst kind of not having to really think about it too much and get a range of shots. So that's going to be great. But the lens is, I mean, it's lovely. It's really nice. I mean, it feels like a really nice piece of kit. It's not too heavy, but it just feels substantial all at the same time. And I mean, looking at the picture in the back of the camera, it looks incredibly sharp.
It's so sharp.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they look beautiful, and it's going to be a great addition to my camera bag.
I'm going to need it back.
Sorry, can't have it.
Up early this morning, we finished the shoot. That was rain, fog, drizzle. It's not stopped us though. Amazingly sharp lenses. 105, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, really, really impressed. It's a really nice kind of weight for kind of shooting handheld. It's not too heavy. Felt really steady with it today. The images look bitingly sharp. The detail we've been recording with both lenses have been fantastic. And it's a nice working distance as well for insects. You're kind of able to stay far enough away that you're minimising disturbance. So yeah, first impressions, excellent.
No, it's a great lens. I love that focal length as well. Yeah. I've done a lot of weddings, events, commercial portraits, and I'm just sort of looking at these trees here, and the bokeh we're getting off of that, I'm thinking as a portrait lens, that's just going to be amazing. So sharp as well. The detail on your subject will be brilliant. Out of focus area is very controllable, so it's going to be really, really good from that regard. Video, this I think is going to be great on video. Actually, both of them are going to be great on video. I'm really interested on this on video as well. Small, lightweight, put this in a cage. We can really use this as a video lens. I think great lenses. And again, just because you're not a macro photographer doesn't mean you shouldn't own one of these lenses. They're so versatile. I think they should really be in everybody's kit bag.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that completely. I mean, obviously for me, it's a bit of a mainstay, but it is something you definitely want to have in your kit bag. There's as you said, so versatile, aren't they?
No, it's been great. I'm thinking it's been so great. Should we go and have a look to see if they're still there?
Let's do it.
More.
Yeah, why not? Excellent.